Ravishka is a naturalist because he is interested in his surroundings and has been looking into what is there. He is still an undergraduate at the Horizon campus, Mala Bay, and follows a BSc Honours course in biotechnology that is affiliated to the Nila University in Malaysia. He has been president of the Nature Beyond the Horizon Society, that is the Environment Society of the Horizon campus in Mala Bay, and is an honorary member of the current committee. He is an active member of the field on ornithology group of Sri Lanka, and currently works with the Biodiversity Educational Research Initiative of Sri Lanka. Now, he has many interests in the biological field, ornithology being one, plants being another, lower plants, and recently he joined us on a field trip to the Mount Lavinia beach, where we have been studying the marine organisms there on the rocky shore. So his talk today is on carnivorous plants. I ask all of you to keep your microphones muted. Everyone has muted them. So Ravishka, if you are ready, you can start the presentation now.
Sure, Dr. Malik. Thank you very much for your great introduction. So I will share my screen now. Can you all see my screen, like in full screen mode? Yes, I hope. Yeah, okay. So thank you very much. So today I'm going to talk about the carnivorous plants of Sri Lanka. So in the background, you can see some really colorful beauties. So by the end of the presentation, you will be able to know what actually these species are. And in the right hand picture, there is like a red color star-like picture, which was sent to me by Mrs. Ninel Tonia Fernando from Chundikulam, and it's actually a sundew plant. So yes, let's move forward. So what are carnivorous plants? So basically carnivorous plants are plants like which do the habit of carnivory in order to get the necessary nutrition, especially nitrogen, because these plants live in places where nitrogen is really scarce. So they have a huge fight in order to get the necessary nitrogen which they need to thrive. So they have to compete with other plants as well. So with time, with evolution, this plants has like got an amazing ingenious way of trapping insects, live prey, in order to digest them and get the nutrition which they need. So it's really fascinating, and it's one of the wonders in the plant world itself about talking when talking about these carnivorous plants. So let's move forward. So the global aspect. So carnivorine plants has evolved independently across several families and orders. So there are more than 600 known species of carnivorous plants around the globe, and it's a very diverse group. Now with the latest technology, there are many and hundreds of hybrids coming into the world because of the exotic market to be grown as house plants. So there are lots of hybrids coming out into the world as well. So there are different types of carnivorous plant like traps. So I got this image from the internet. So you can see like there are motile traps, flypaper traps, pitfall traps, and lobster pot traps. So in Sri Lanka, when studying the diversity of these carnivorous plants, you will be able to see motile traps, flypaper traps, and pitfall traps. But the lobster pot traps, the plants which show this trapping system, is like no species which shows this can be seen in Sri Lanka. So that's what we can talk about the global aspect of these carnivorous plants. So in Sri Lanka, so Sri Lanka has 3 genera from 3 different families of carnivorous plants. So talking about the Drosera, so Drosera, the Flammary Droseraceae has Aldrovanda, Diania, and Drosera genuses. So from these, the genus Drosera is present in Sri Lanka, and there are 3 species from that. Talking about Nepenthaceae, the family Nepenthaceae, the genus Nepenthes is there, and we only have an individual species which is endemic to Sri Lanka, which is Nepenthes distillatoria. So then, talking about Lentibularaceae, so we have the Utricularia species with us. But in talking about the word, there is Genlisiae, Pinguicula, and Utricularia. There are 3 genuses, and from that we have the Utricularia genus in Sri Lanka. So altogether, there are like more than 12 species of Utricularia, 3 Drosera species, and 1 Nepenthes species in our wild habitats. Okay, so talking about studies in Sri Lanka, for this section, I have like used only a few examples. So this is Museum Silenicum. So Paul Herman has been a botanist plus a physician. So he has lived in the 1600s. So it's quite fascinating how he has been interested in Sri Lankan plants and has depicted these plants by the actual Sinhalese names itself. So here is the passage which he has written in the Museum Silenicum. Like you can read, like it's called the Badura about our Nepenthes distillatoria. He has documented in Latin. So here are this Vatassa. So Vatassa is Drosera burmani, the star-like plant which I showed in the opening slide. And Kandulassa is Drosera indica, which you will be able to see in the future slides to come. So it's really interesting how people has been fascinated about these things and has been studying these things. So the study of carnivorous plants hasn't been done around in this early like present years. So from the earlier times onwards, people has been interested in this particular type of plant, this particular group of plants. So this is another example. So this is Marianne North. So this is really fabulous and famous artwork of her. So this shows the Nepenthes distillatoria with a butterfly, the banded peacock. It's a beautiful work of art, and she has done a lot of botanical illustrations. So this work of art signifies that in 1800s that even she as a botanical illustrator has been interested in these carnivorous plants. Then another example is from the Wildflowers of Ceylon book by Mrs. Dorothy Fernando. So I have like brought out the examples. So here like she has beautifully depicted some of the Utricularia species with the Sinhala names itself. So like Nilmonaras and the Striatula Utricularia, Coirulia. The scientific names has changed with time, as it does with almost any species or any type of animal or plant. But the illustrations are really beautiful, and this is an illustration done by her to the Drosera peltata, the Adesandassa plant. And this is another drawing. So it's really interesting how people has been studying these things. But lately when you talk about carnivorous plants, the interest is much less. There is not like kind of a hype going behind these plants. As so if you talk about birds or orchids, so there are lots of people who are interested and studying about these things. But when talking about carnivorous plants, it's a bit less. So then let's go to the habitats. So talking about habitats, usually as I said before, these plants live in places where nitrogen and phosphorus and potassium, the nutrients are scarce. So you can see these plants in water bodies, in ponds and lakes and tanks. So there are lots of other aquatic plants which is fighting against this race of survival. Then let's talk about the grasslands and near paddy fields, where the grass grows and other undergrowth grows. So then again, you can see these carnivorous plants. Then places with a lot of water flow in it. So yes, so the water washes away the nutritions, and they have adapted to get their nutrition by doing carnivory. Then rainforest undergrowth. So in rainforest, where the Nepenthes distillatoria grows, so again, yeah, from example, you know how a rainforest consists like. So there are lots of trees and lots of layers. So every plant has to fight for sunlight, nutrition, and so on. So there's a diverse habitat, like which is distributed all around Sri Lanka. So in every zone, you will be able to see at least like one of these carnivorous plants uh, species. Okay, so now let's go to the Nepenthes. So the family is Nepenthaceae, and we have this one species which is endemic to us, which is Nepenthes distillatoria. So this plant uses the pitchers to trap insects. So it's a pitfall trap. So it's more usually seen in like the secondary forest and fringe situations. So fringe situations are like the cliffy ends and like the outer boundaries of a forest. So, and this has quite a lot of like color morphs for the picture as well. I will show you in the previous, like the future slides to come. I think, and it's my view, that this color of the picture changes due according to the amount of sunlight which the plant itself gets. So in the bottom here, I have included a picture of the flower. Actually, these pitcher plants, like the Nepenthes plants, produce male flowers and female flowers separately. So there you won't be able to see the both flowers in one plant at one time. So either it's the female flower or the male flowers. So the male flowers like hold the anther and the filament, and the pistil comes with another flower. So this here is with the red cap. You can see there some ants like circling around on the top. So the thing which happens is, so the rim of this pitcher plant produces this kind of sap. So the ants, usually ants get trapped in this pitcher most of the time. So these ants come in to get this sap, and they fall into the trap, which consists of digestive enzymes, and those proteins will be broken down into amino acids, and then the pitcher plant will absorb the required nutrition. So let's move forward. So here I have showed like the process of a young pitcher growing up. Now I have to talk about this thing where they say that this is the flower of the pitcher plant. So even there are songs like telling that the Reran Bigunna Su Bandura Malo Bailande. So never the Bandura flower, the Nepenthes flower, never like kills insects, because it gets a benefit out of insect, because benefits insects helps the Nepenthes plant to get pollinated. So this is not the flower, this is actually a specially adapted leaf. So the leaf forms normally as any young leaf would do from the meristem. It will grow, and when it matures up, the right leg, the end of the leaves turns into a pitcher. So it's really fascinating to watch this process. So here I have photographed like from the young to the time where the picture is open. So this is like the kind of brownish morph, but there's a, like a total brown morph pictures as well. So, okay, here on the right hand side, it is not a Nepenthes distillatoria male flower. It's of another species, but like you can see the characteristics really well. So you can see the anthers, and you can see like the spores will be there in yellow color. And on the left hand side, I took this photograph in Singharaja. You can see a female flower which has turned into seed pods. There are young seed pods. If you look closely, you can see that the young seed pods are forming. So it's like a it's like a cluster of seed pods. It's really beautiful to see. But I included this other kind of pitcher plant flower because for you all to get for, for you all for you all to get a good idea about this. Yes, let's move forward. So this is the seed pods, and this is a good example of a male flower in the right and left hand side. You can see the seed pods. And here, full major seed pods with the picture itself. And the left hand side, again, this is from the Sinharaja rainforest. But if you travel to Kanneli rainforest and Sinharaja rainforest, you can obviously see these beauties. And on the right hand side, so a question I have got like before is also that people have seen this small kind of beautiful pitcher plants everywhere, whether asking whether it's a different species altogether. No, it's not. It's the young pitcher plants. It's the young Nepenthes distillatoria, which you will see like this. So these are the seedlings. So seedlings are not so huge as the mother plants, and they might look like some kind of small Nepenthes. And there are small Nepenthes species in the world, like Nepenthes raja. But yes, this is young Nepenthes distillatoria seedlings. And here is a close-up of the green moth and like how ants are coming to collect the sap. And it will be doom for them because once they fall in, there will be no way out. And here I have showed the light brown moth. Like usually in the most shaded places, you will see the light brown moth. And here is some other pictures as well, and I have showed the inside of a picture. And I was talking with Dr. Asang, and he said that 1 or 2 mosquito larvae and pupa stages develop inside this picture, and like so they have like proteolytic enzyme resistance in their outer covering. So that's quite interesting actually. So like they can actually survive inside that liquid. So then there's another misunderstanding that this lid closes when insects fall in. Lots of people think that this lid closes. So it never closes. So this lid is just a shield to keep the like the liquid inside from getting diluted from rainwater. So it keeps the rainwater away. So the liquid which is inside can like stand with the necessary way, like without getting diluted. Okay, so that's about Nepenthes distillatoria. Then we go to the family Droseraceae and the genus which we have, which is Drosera. So yes, we have 3 species in Sri Lanka. So Drosera burmani, in Sinhala you call it Batassa. Drosera peltata, in Sinhalese you call it Andasandassa, and Drosera indica, which is called as Kandulassa. So uses an adhesive glue to catch prey. So it's quite interesting. Look, so there is this glands in the leaf which produces this glue. So like insects are attracted to it, like thinking it's some kind of it must be having a scent, or like it's thinking it's some kind of food, and they get trapped to it. And what happens with time is like when they struggle to get out of this trap, so the leaf will start curling around the insect, as I have showed in this picture here. So I took this picture from the internet actually, because to get the exact pictures you need a macro lens. So yes, so the leaf will curl around the insect, then the enzymes which is in the sticky glue will dissolve the insect and give the necessary nutrition to the plant. So in the right hand side is a photograph which I took in Horton Plains showing Drosera burmani. So Drosera burmani has a wide distribution. So you can see it in the dry zone, in the wet zone, everywhere if there is like this semi-aquatic conditions. So and this is totally matured plants. When it gets matured, it turns red, and right in the beginning and the start, it's green. So another thing about Drosera is like it has seasons. So it lays as seeds in the dry season, and when the wet season emerges, you will be able to see the seedlings coming up, and within few weeks you will be see mature plants and producing flowers itself. So yes, let's talk about Drosera indica, Kandulasa. So it's easy to identify. So there is this pinkish, light purplish, like violet, like flower, which I have shown, and it's light green, and you have this uh, thin, long leaves compared to its size. So linear leaves, which is surrounded with these traps. So it is not a hard plant to identify. Actually, all the three Drosera species has really unique characteristics, so you will never be able to, it won't be hard for you to identify these. So yes, and here is another example of Drosera indica. So these pictures I took in Pitavalapattana in Nakas. So if you travel there, you will be amazed about like how many species of carnivorous plants you can see there. Actually, it's more than you guess. So there's a lots of species around the place in the whole Nakas region itself. So it's a quite an interesting place to visit if you are really keen about these plants. So yes, now I'm going to Drosera burmani. It has a white flower, and you can see like the how you can see them with the grass itself. So it's like tiny stars popping up from here and there with the grass. So it's really beautiful to see Drosera burmani. So here is a close-up of the pictures. So when it matures, it turns red. So unlike the Drosera indica, this has kind of an oval-shaped leaf. And actually, it's not hard to identify this because this is the only Drosera species which looks like this in Sri Lankan wild habitats. Then Drosera peltata. So here, uh, I think in the left-hand corner side, I hope that you can see the peltata is a yellow color plant. The white plant is another endemic plant which is called like Sudana and Anaphalia sulfuta, I think. Yeah. Yes. So this is called Undersandasa. So Undersandasa, you can see this close-up of the leaf. So it's like a half moon. So the Sinhalese people has like named it Undersandasa, I think, regarding this characteristic. So the trapping mechanisms of all these species is the same. So all the Drosera species lose this adhesive like glue-like substance. So they will use to dissolve the insects and get the necessary nutritions. So this Undersandasa plant is a terrestrial plant, and both Drosera indica and Drosera burmani is semi-aquatic. And talking about the local population, the Drosera peltata population is endangered. But talking about the global scenario, it's quite the different. So it's quite better. But talking about the local uh, population status, it's quite sad. Okay, so now this is the understand as a flower. So it's again a white flower, but it won't be hard to recognize this because there are only two species which shows white flowers, Drosera burmani and Drosera peltata, and they have totally different physical characteristics. Next, we go to the hardest of all. So Utricularia species. So there is a collection of species distributed island-wide, and this uses bladders to trap insects. So these are actually called bladder warts as well. So in the right below, I have shown a picture of two bladders, and I will talk about these plants in the upcoming slides. So what happens is, so these bladders have these tiny hairs. So these live in semi-aquatic conditions and aquatic conditions. So what happens is, when the prey moves close, it will trigger the hair, and because of that trigger, the door will open. I will refer to it as a door, where the lid of the trap will open. And because the inside is empty, to fill in the pressure, the prey itself will run into the bladder itself, and then the lid will close. Then only it will start the digestion process. So I included this photo in with my hand, like to show how small, really small they are. They are filled with vibrant colors, but they are really small, tiny flowers, tiny jewels, I would say. This is the Utricularia moniliformis, which I included with the photo of my hand. I will talk about them. Okay, now this is really important. When talking about Utricularia species, you have to take into consideration their leaf shapes. So talking about Sri Lanka, there are 3 basic leaf shapes. So this is a cluster of Utricularia. You can see semi-aquatic and some is growing under the water itself. So you will like think like, ah, this is some kind of green moss or something. This looks like a kind of liverworts as well, but this is the utricularia. So if you think about liverworts, they have their reproductive organs coming out, but these won't have though. And without flowers, it's really hard without the proper experience to know whether this is a utricularia plant or not. So this is one of the huge clusters which I have seen in Knuckles Conservation Forest in one of my field visits. So these are the linear leaf types. So there are tiny stripes. So they live in groups, and when they live among the grass, it's obvious, like you can never see it. It's only the flowers that you will be able to see popping up here and there with bright colors. Then you have the circular leaves. So this photograph I took in Pinduruthalagala. So this, with the moss itself, you can see like how it's thriving, how the circular leaves are popping up. So the circular leaves are of Utricularia moniliformis. So you have the linear leaves, then you have the circular leaves, then you go to this mesh-like numerous leaf structure with bladders. So we have 2 species of like aquatic Utricularia, and you will see this structure in them. So even if you are in Colombo, and if you even like go to a tank like Talangama tank or the Asaru Park, you will be able to see these structures floating if you look really closely. But like, don't go too close because there are crocodiles and everything around the place. But absolutely, from now onwards, you will see the yellow flowers. So there are 3 leaf types which you have to keep in mind when it comes to Utricularia in Sri Lanka. Okay, let's talk about the species. So one is Utricularia aurea. So then talking about the flowers itself. So flowers like consist of like, look at the left hand side picture. So there are 2 parts. So the upper petal like it's upper lip, and with the dewdrops you can see the lower lip, and in the middle you can see the palate. So usually in some species the palate has some kind of design. So take in mind, so when you are going to see this Utricularia aurea, so you will see this yellow flower with almost same size upper and lower lips, and peduncle is green, and if you see the plant itself, it's like a meshy plant, the numerous leaf structure as I showed before. So it's Utricularia aurea. Then Utricularia stellaris. So again, it will be a cluster of yellow flowers. It will have that numerous leaf structure. The thing is, if you see, like, look into the right hand side picture, I hope you can see my cursor as well. These floating structures are present in Utricularia stellaris. So you will be able to differentiate it with aurea, whether it's aurea stellaris, by this structure which you can see. So both are aquatic, and most commonly they are in the dry zone and near in tanks, and they are almost aquatic. I haven't really seen them in semi-aquatic conditions. So 2 gone from this yellow Utricularia flowers. Then Utricularia bifida. So it's quite easy. Like, the upper lip is almost missing. And in grasslands, you will see them in huge numbers along with other Drosera species and Utricularia species. These photographs I took in again in Knuckles region. So this is Utricularia bifida, and this won't grow on these aquatic conditions. Among the grass, so this will grow, and the bladders are unrecognizable. They are really microscopic and they feed on zooplankton. So all the other Utricularia species like Utricularia stellaris, Utricularia aurea, they feed on like kind of bigger prey. But comparing these like feed on really tiny microscopic creatures, I would say. So this is really easy to identify, as I said. So the upper lip is like almost missing. So, and the palette has not kind. So if you take macro photographs, you will see like stripes going on the palette itself. So that's Utricularia bifida. So here is a good example of how it grows in numbers. It's quite wonderful to see all gold and yellow glistening in the sun. And these are the seed pods in the right hand side. So they have these beautiful peach colored seed pods. So that's Utricularia bifida, really common. It's easy to identify. Then Utricularia gibba. So here the plus point is you have to look at the plant. So you can see how it runs like. So I took this picture in Singharaja forest. So if you see this net-like green thing and these tiny yellow flowers popping up here and there, that's Utricularia gibba. So that's again easy to identify because of the plant structure. So take into mind this, this structure which I have shown in the right-hand side picture. So it's really interesting to, like it's really easy to identify this species. So here with the mesh-like green net, you will see the yellow color flowers popping up. Then you come to Utricularia caerulea, totally white, peduncle like bright red maroon, and it grows among the grass. And yes, it is quite like hard to identify from the first glance. So you have two color morphs, this light purple one and the white one. So two varieties of the same species. So you have to get into mind like the variety and species differentiation. So in like even if you take orchids, so from the same species, like there are different varieties. So these are two color varieties of Utricularia caerulea. So look at this, like look at the upper lip and the lower lip, and the lower lip is like pointed towards the end. So it's like pointed, and in the light purple one, it's really visible. You can see the stripes of the in the palette itself. So yes. Then Utricularia striatula. Now this has the linear leaf structure which I showed with the photo in the river. So now we go to the circular leaf structure of Utricularia striatula. So Utricularia striatula again has two color varieties, the white and light purple. So in the right hand side picture, you can see like the circular leaves of the Utricularia striatula. This is one of my favorite flowers. Actually, it's really heavenly. It's like a cluster of angels. So you have the white variety and the white and light purple variety. So you again, it won't be hard to identify this because of the yellow patch in the middle. So there is only one plant which look like this, which is Utricularia moniliformis, which I will show in the upcoming slides. So again, so striatula is done. So if you are going on the field, if you see this flower, it's Utricularia striatula. Then Utricularia hirta. So not like the other flower which I showed before. So this is really extremely tiny flower, and you will see in grasslands. So no white strips in the palette, all purple. So So yes, so like this is really tiny flower which you will see, and the photos I took in Pitavalapathana. So you have to keep a good lookout for this plant. It's really tiny. So that's Utricularia hirta. So then Utricularia reticulata. Now here comes the tricky bit of the further upcoming like plants. There are three plants which looks like almost the same. So I'll talk about Utricularia reticulata now. So the upper lip and the lower lip is both like larger in size, and the lower lip has like some kind of a curled and a beautiful look, and in the palette there is this design. So now look closely at this photograph. So take into the like the consideration about the petal sizes. So yes, so this is Utricularia reticulata. And then coming to Utricularia graminifolis. So you must be able to see a difference. So like the top petal is kind of small, and the design in the palette is quite the same, and the lower like the lower petal or the lip, I say, is much round than this reticulata. So this is graminifolia and reticulata. So here in reticulata, I think again it depends on the place where it grows. There is this kind of some light whitish one, and this kind of dark one. So now this is Utricularia uliginosa. So uliginosa has two color morphs, this whitish one in the right and this like purplish, light purplish one on the left. So the thing is to differentiate between this uliginosa and graminifolia is these colors are not present in graminifolia. So again, and especially this left hand side color, and this is two varieties. So peduncle color, notice this peduncle color. This is the left hand side has a quite red and the right hand side has green, and in the next slide is the side pictures of it. So this is graminifolia reticulata uliginosa, and here the graminifolia and reticulata, both the plants are in the same spot. So this is graminifolia and this is reticulata. On the top you will see reticulata and graminifolia. Like, so that's the hard thing about these things. So about these three species, you have to have good knowledge and good field identification to do, because they live in the same places as well, sometimes together. So it's kind of a hard job. So reticulata, graminifolia, and uliginosa. Okay. Then this is one of the bluest of all. So these are called monorasa species, and people call all these Utricularia species nil monorasa, and some are not blue at all. So this is the bluest of all the Utricularia species. So this is Utricularia polygaloides. If you go to Pitavalapathana in Nakas, it's a sure shot if you are there in the right season, and you can see other droseras in the background as well. So this is like a whole community of carnivorous plants growing together. So this is easy to identify. It's totally blue, so it's Utricularia polygaloides. So here comes to our endemic Utricularia species. So this is Utricularia moniliformis, and talking about the three leaf structures. Here we have the circular leaf structure in this plant. So it's a beautiful plant actually. So it has the circular leaves, and sometimes this grows as an epiphyte as well. I have seen it going on tree trunks sometimes. So if there is a nutrition depleted place and it looks quite happy to live there, it will go and stay there. So look at this example. This shows how hard it is to thrive. So here there are some Celodinella species and some mosses, and right in middle you can see this moniliformis thriving hard to grow. And in this close-up photograph on the right, you can see the circular leaves right in the middle line. So yes, then this unidentified species. So the illustrated guide for the like flora of Ceylon by Dr. J.D. Vlas, there are 3 books. So if you go through them, so these photographs are from that book itself. I can the photographs. So he has like mentioned as unidentified species. So they might be indigenous or endemic to Sri Lanka. So I really haven't seen this species. And again, it has a circular leaf structure. I haven't seen this species, but I added that into the slides. This I saw. Again, he has referred as an unidentified species. This, of course, like when I went looking for it, I saw it. Then this is another Utricularia species. It looks kind of fascinating to me as well, but I haven't seen this. So these 3 species he has referred as unidentified. So yes, so uses. So basically almost all these plants are herbal plants. So Nepenthes is used to treat oedemna of the foot, whooping cough and abscesses. For whooping cough, I have like heard and I have met a person who has used it as well. You have to take the unopened pitcher and drink the liquid inside. So yes, so Drosera indica is used to treat tumors, cancers, corns and warts, and Utricularia reticulata is used to treat eye diseases, snake bites and ulcers, etc. So these data about the diseases, like I took it from the University of Ruhuna Ayurvedic website. So if you, it's really beneficial because you can like get in touch with which plant is used for which treatment. It's a really good website uh, of recommendation. Then another use is, you can see this tank on the left hand side, that's Utricularia graminifolis. So it's used as an plant in aquascaping, as a carpet plant. So you have to use a medium which is not much filled with nutrients, and you have to trim it as well. It won't flower underwater. They will not flower underwater. But yes, it's a beautiful plant used in aquascaping. And on the right hand side, I have shown the Nepenthes distillatoria, like it's meristem cultures at the tissue culture lab. So I took this photograph. So they are in the we are into like propagating it. So in tissue culture, so it's really beneficial because like it won't get like wiped away from a country. So, and the other thing is, if you are growing exotic Nepenthes varieties, be sure to cut away the flowers because it's not the distillatoria. So nature has a superb way of doing uncertain stuff. So if your flower gets pollinated with the distillatoria and a hybrid comes out to life, it will be a huge disaster. So if you are growing exotic Nepenthes varieties, so growing them is a different subject altogether. It's a long subject to talk. So if you are growing, and if your Nepenthes flowers, and if it's not the Nepenthes distillatoria, please be sure to cut away the flower and throw it away, because it will be a huge disaster if it gets pollinated with our endemic species. So keep that in mind, and don't go to pluck out all the carnivorous plants which you see in the wild. Don't pluck the Nepenthes plants. If you go to the wildlife department stores, they have propagated these plants. They have propagating like campaigns going on. It's like really cheap. If you are really keen on having one, you can go to a department, especially in Carnelia near the ticket office. You will be able to see the store. You can get these plants. And this picture I added for the last. This is a project done on a foreign university actually in 2000 early 20s. This is a really popular picture in the internet as well. So here you can see that this is green algae inside the bladder wort. So what has happened is that in acidic conditions, not much of zooplankton are available. So these single cell algae has triggered and it has gone inside, and the article says that it's digested into a certain level. So the thing is, in the future, so some utricularia species might be omnivorous, not carnivorous, if they are having these photosynthetic things digested. So it's a fun fact right in the end. So then I have, just to show, I wanted to do this practical session most probably. So Droseraceae, this is a sample from the Droseraceae. If you can see my camera, you will be able to see a Dionia, another genus from the Droseraceae. So these are known as Venus flytraps. So quite fascinating. I did a propagating project of them as well, and you can see like a cluster of young growing inside happily. So these are quite interesting plants to study. So this is the way just like a sundew plant look in the wild, but much smaller. Then talking about Nepenthes distillatoria. So this is a fern is growing with it. So this is how it will look like. So as I said, here is the start of the leaf. So the start of the leaf starts from this, and right in the end, you will see the pictures coming up. So this was in shade, and this was in shade, and this has this brown morph in it. So yes, I hope that we were able to do a practical session to get hands-on experience with these lovely plants, but due to COVID, it's better to stay safe as always. So this is how they will grow, like with all the other plants. It's a woody climber, and you will see the pictures coming out right at the end of the leaves. So I hope you got the knowledge you need to identify the species in the wild, and thank you very much. This comes to the end of my presentation. So I hope all of you enjoyed the speech. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ravishka. Thank you very much for that very enlightening talk. We have some time for any questions that you would like to ask.
Yes. So,
any?
Ravishka, you said that one of the plants is microscopic animals. What did you mean by microscopic animals?
Zooplankton, mostly zooplankton. So they you like digest this bacteria and zooplankton to get the nutrition, because all the other larval stages are much bigger for the bladders to get inside and digest. So that's the thing with
If I may ask a quick question,
yes.
I have seen at Apico some carnivorous plants for sale.
Yes. Yes.
So I think this is a byproduct of the export business. There's a big exporting venture apparently which exports carnivorous plants.
Yes.
The question I had was, are these kind of exotics, or are they our own
Yes,
plants which we are propagating and
no,
exporting?
they are exotics. They are exotics. The thing is, like our Nepenthes distillatoria grows huge, and I have read that there are some hybrids which has been made for the exotic trade using this plants. So yes, the biopiracy might happen, but the plants which was in Arpico supercenters was exotic, purely exotic, and usually the Bangkok people are really in ahead of this exotic trade, and there are lots of people bringing in exotic varieties to Sri Lanka as well for the home growing. So the thing is, the exotic trade, as I mentioned before, it's if you get a flower, cut it off, and it's good if you like, just do it, but like stop from them getting into the wild. So because getting those exotics into the wild may be really harmful. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Ravishka,
Yes.
I am Asanga here.
Okay.
Uh,
Actually, I can't really hear.
Sorry, you're breaking up. Do you mind repeating the question, please?
Yes.
Why don't you type the question into the chat?
That's
do you hear
also
me,
good.
Ravishka? Do you hear me?
Asanga, please type the question into the chat. Then everyone will see it and Ravishka can answer.
Yeah, actually, this is a comment because he mentioned what mosquito is.
Sorry, sir. Like I couldn't.
Last speaker, you were
Yes.
quite unintelligible. Can you type your question on the chat?
Hi, Ravishka.
I think he has left. He might join back again.
Ravishka, can you hear me? Can I ask you a question?
Yes. 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 I can hear you.
Yeah. Ravishka, is there any hybridization happening in between those Candulas and all the other stuff? I think Nepanthe is being hybridized, isn't it, at the moment
Yes.
in international arena?
Yes.
How about the
The new-
smaller ones? Is it possible, or are there any has been done already?
Do you mean like in the artificially hybridized ones or the naturally hybridized
Yeah,
ones?
artificially in the commercial world.
In the commercial world, I have read that it has been hybridized, and I have read about it, but I haven't seen any. But
Right.
most of the species which I have seen in this theater and all these plant shops and everywhere are hybrid species,
Right.
because all the natural existing species are like kind of hard to grow, and they have like quite big.
Yeah.
So they have to bring out the best characteristics. They have
Yeah.
hybrided these plants. Talking about the wild, once I talked with the person who is doing this traditional medicine, and he said that there are some hybridized plants in the wild, but I haven't seen it with my own eyes.
Right.
So again, but I think it might be a problem. But the best thing is to cut away the flowers.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And what about the one that you showed in the tank as an aquatic plant? How did they accumulate the necessary, they absorb the necessary the nutrients? Like I mean, in a controlled aquatic environment, in a tank. I mean.
Inside the tank, right?
Yeah.
So
do you have to provide the nutrients, and can they absorb
inside the tank? Obviously, with time, beneficial bacteria and microorganisms will grow.
Okay.
So, yes. So that's why, like when doing aquascapes, like you can't really use any antibiotics even if the fish are sick. So you will have to take the fish into a different tank and then treat the fish, because the antibiotics will kill the beneficial bacteria and the microorganisms.
Microorganisms.
Yes. So the utricularia, graminifollis is the mostly used plant in the tanks. So
Right.
yes. So they are like, they get the nutritions that way because they don't have that huge bladders. Huge means like easy to see bladders. Yes.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Ravishka.
Thank you very much.
I have a
And the
question.
picture which was in the screen is one of those unidentified species which I show, the one which I have also seen. So even like I have to look into it more, because even in this Dr. J.D. Blas book, Illustrated Field Guide to the Flowers of Sri Lanka. So again, it's there. It's one of those unidentified species. If I share the screen, I can show you the picture. Wait, I'll try to. So it was. So wait. So it was this. It was this. So they say that it's an unidentified species. So I have to like look into what the present status is, because in 2019 it refers as an unidentified species, and I don't know like how it has processed on. So I have to look in. That's the picture which I saw like being screen shared. I think that person needed that plant to be identified.
Ravishka, there's a question.
Okay.
From Nalin Vikramanayaka. Are there any other water plants entirely within the water that send a yellow flower through the water surface?
Which grows like entirely in water.
With water,
Yes.
and then you can send the yellow flower up to the surface.
I mean, are
Yes.
all those plants carnivorous?
No.
No, okay.
No. So look into it. Like if you see that hydrilla plant, like numerous leaf structure, and so it's obviously it's Utricularia aurea or Utricularia stellaris. That's the only two species with yellow flowers which I have seen in aquatic conditions.
But hydrilla also sends a yellow flower or not?
No, hydrilla does not send a yellow flower.
So this is because we have a lot of hydrilla, and then inside between that there must be some other plants. Then I have never actually thought about it. I always thought it was hydrilla flower.
Yeah, so like check
Okay.
into it and see what that is. Yes. Yeah.
Ravishka, do you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear.
Okay. So actually, I have to add this. You mentioned my name. Actually, the genera that breed in Nepenthes pitchers, it is Armigerous.
Oh, thank you very much, doctor.
And the other thing I want to add is these carnivorous plants grow in a special type of habitat, and it is known as hydropetric habitat. Okay? This is, to your knowledge, hydropetric habitat. And the other thing I want to add is most of these plants, their life cycle is ephemeral. That means they complete the life cycle within less than 1 year, and they can well adapted to live in soil seed banks as dormant. And once the rain comes, then they can germinate and they complete their life cycle within a very short period of time. And such plants are known as ephemeral plants. This is for your knowledge.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sangal. Thank you very much. So everyone got good knowledge about that side as well, about the mosquitoes and the growing system. Thank you very much, Doctor.
I hope that's not a disease-causing mosquito. Otherwise, we'll have the public health authorities going around putting up all these plants.
No, Dr. Malikman, actually, these are very, they don't act as vectors. Actually, during the evenings, you get, actually, there are relatively very large size of mosquitoes. Normally bite our legs, actually. So, that is the type, the genus. But they are not vectors, for sure.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Doctor.
Any more questions? or comments? If no, Chris, would you close the meeting, please? Chris, are you around?
Yes, Doc. Yeah, can you hear me, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen? Yeah, so Ravishka, thank you very much. At the carnivorous plants, my mind goes back to a very dramatic comic book I read a long time ago. So where there were these explorers slipping and sliding and trying to get away from the clutches of some carnivorous plants. So listening to Ravishka's presentation, I figure that, it's the same thing and it's just a question of scale. And I think that's what happens to the insects, which get caught to these carnivorous plants and they are, trying to get away.
Yes. Yes.
So we learned from Ravishka's presentation that there are 3 genera of carnivorous plants in Sri Lanka. And some of them are terrestrial, some of them are aquatic, and some of them are semi-aquatic. So a lot of interesting detail you went through, Ravishka. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Some of the pictures were really beautiful also. So we really benefited by listening to your presentation. I'm also happy to report that Ravishka has just joined the Natural History Society. So he will, I'm sure he will be a future patron going up on Dr. Manik Fernando in the future. So welcome to the society, Ravishka, and we look forward to your participation. And we also look forward to doing some field trips with you so that we can do the practicals that you were not able to do because of COVID restrictions today.
Yes.
So we will catch up on all that in the future. So Ravishka, thank you very much once again, and thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. While